It's another Friday afternoon on independent television and radio. The program is Hitches and Voices. In case you're joining us for the first time, Hitches and Voices is a program that is dedicated towards advocating and creating awareness about persons with disability in Edo State and in Nigeria at large. Hitches and Voices is coming to you courtesy Network for the Advancement of People with Visible Disability, NAPVID. NAPVID is a non-governmental organization here in Edo State, Benin City, that is advancing the rights of persons with disability. Today on Hitches and Voices, we'll not be doing much. We'll just center our conversation around what we started about 13 weeks ago, which is a series on the Edo State disability law. But before we delve properly into the program for today, my name is Kingsley Okoje, and my sign language interpreter is Cynthia Godwin. So like I said, today we are going to do a rundown of all the conversations we had during the series of the Edo State disability law. That series sprang up several conversations around access to healthcare for persons with disability, access to education, access to public infrastructure like transportation, buildings, several conversations, even conversations around the composition of the Edo State Commission for Persons with Disability. We had on this program where some deaf persons disagreed with the composition of the commission, saying there is no deaf person in that commission, and suggesting that government should do the needful by appointing a deaf person as a member of the Edo State Disability Commission. Several things were said, several demands were made during that series, calling on the government to do the needful. One that stood out for me is the call on the government to do something about special education in Edo State. But I'll talk more about that when we come back to round up the program. But I want to say a very big thank you to our friends from the Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, JONAPID, for sponsoring that series on the Edo State disability law, for partnering with us. It was indeed a very wonderful one, and we hope that our partnership has not ended, and our conversation around the Edo State disability law certainly has not come to an end. We'll deepen that conversation, and we'll continue to talk about access and inclusion for persons with disability. So let's take you through a rundown of all that transpired, all the conversations that we had during the series of the Edo State disability law, and we'll be back to round up the show. It's another Friday afternoon on independent television and radio. It's Hitches and Voices.
Inclusion. It's development.
Ensuring that persons with disability, wherever they are working, it is very, very conducive.
However, there are gaps. There are some things that the CRPD contains that are not in the Edo State law, and I'll just highlight some of the salient ones.
From the government and even from the now private sector now have access, ramps are created. These are persons with disabilities, but they have ability despite their disability. They are able to exercise it. So faith-based organizations should begin to advocate for these ones.
The person that is able finds it difficult to use a ramp.
Yes. So the method does not affect us at all. What affects us is the sun.
Convinced that education is a leveler between a person with disability and one without disability.
We live well like every other. Disability is not inability. That's what we just want to meet.
Civil society will keep engaging, needs to keep engaging to ensure that law, is, implemented to the fullest.
I have with me in the studio Ebosa Henry, Mr. former chairman, Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, Edo State Chapter. Mr. Erebose, welcome to Hitches and Voices.
Thank you very much. You see, in this modern time, especially in the time that we are in now, inclusivity is the key word. It is one of the major things that will differentiate a civilized nation from an uncivilized one. Discrimination reduces the dignity of persons. Discrimination does not make somebody to bring out his full potentials. And so that is why we, as in Jonapid and as persons with disability, we detest to the core the issue of discrimination. When persons with disabilities are given the right, the full potentials to really bring out their full full potential, what they are made up of, you know, they will go a long way to contributing meaningfully to development. Mark you, inclusion aids development. That is why inclusivity is very, very important in this time now. Without inclusion, there's no proper development. Thank you.
My guest today is the Director, Citizen Mediation Center, Edo State Ministry of Justice, Barrister Melody Omosa. Welcome to Hitches and Voices.
Thank you so very much. What brings about disability or disabling environment? It's societal's attitude, environmental disparity, so to speak, inequalities that we experience in the system, where people with disabilities are not viewed as persons with diversities whose diversity should be approached and recognized based on their peculiarities and given equal measures to contribute to society. Also, don't forget that before now, our forebears, they used to even travel by walking, right, where they have to commute to their destination, traveling months and years. But there's been innovation, there's vehicle now. It is a societal issue. Disability is more of a societal issue. Inaccessible society, prejudice, and unenforced or inadequate or unenforced laws breeds disability. So it has nothing to do with the potentials, it has nothing to do with the skills or capacity that people with disabilities on their own have to contribute to society. And society term that development, right? They work to make it easy. But when it comes to persons with disabilities who cannot go get up a high-rise building, instead of thinking of how to make that possible, you are saying, oh, they have a disability. I wonder how we would have termed our forefathers in those days that has to walk all the way from Edo to Lagos, all the way from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia. What was that? But society looked at development and provided a means for them. But when it comes to people with disability, you are not thinking that there should be equal rights for flyers as equal right for workers. Yes, you want to fly, I want to walk. Provide the means for me to be able to get to my place.
We have a very wonderful guest with us in the studio today, Dr. Awele Ofuanish.
Persons with disabilities are human beings, and so by virtue of their being human beings, they should be accorded, their human rights. Their human rights should be respected. But because of all the discriminatory attitude, stigma surrounding disability, laws have been made both at the international level, the national level, and of course at the state level, our state, Edo State. And these laws, have codified disability rights as human rights. They recognize persons with disabilities as right holders, and as such, they should be treated on the same basis as other persons. There are some salient provisions in the Edo State law which are also mirrored in the national law and international law, but Edo State law, Section 5 of the Edo State law prohibits discrimination against persons with disabilities, and that law is very salient in the sense that we have talked about over time how persons with disabilities have been treated. So it prohibits discrimination in all aspects of life. And it's what I find interesting about the law is it penalizes persons who don't adhere to the law. So assuming a corporate body discriminates against a person with disability, that person will be fined 250,000 naira. And then if it's an individual, that person will be fined 100,000 naira or subject to imprisonment for 6 months, or even a combination of both penalties when it comes to education. The law prohibits discrimination in education, segregation in education. So it kind of, in some way, it recognizes inclusive education.
I have a very resourceful guest in the studio today. She is an architect, and I would like to say welcome to today's program, architect Cecilia Atuonwa. Welcome to Hitches and Voices.
I think there's been quite an amount of omission and let's say disregard or not acknowledging the fact that we're not all the same in this environment that we live in. Wouldn't want to pass blames on anybody now, but I think I think sometimes when things happen, sometimes some things are left out. A number of buildings around us show that the built environment has not effectively carried along persons with disability. You'll notice in a number of buildings across town where there are ramps, that the ramps are not accessible.
So even the ramps themselves are not even well built.
Yes, so that's another problem. So in a number of places you'll find ramps, but the ramps, even in a person that is able finds it difficult to use a ramp. So if a person who is able finds it difficult to use a ramp, what would you hope for the person who is disabled? So I think it's an issue of being aware and consciously and intentionally providing for persons with disability. Because if you are intentional about something, you will take the effort to check the appropriate standards for the rates and the ratios and the slopes you're having. If you're not, you just put something there to fulfill all righteousness that you have a ramp, and then no one can use the ramp. So the ramps are one thing. Other things that you could have are lifts if you are having buildings that need to carry a number of activities or persons. And the other thing that you could have also are toilets that are built for persons with disability. Because even, I think ramps are most often found, but you realize that, yes, you have ramps for persons with disability, so when they get into the building, what toilets are they going to use? There are no toilets for them. So, and toilets for persons with disability are peculiar. So these are things. You also have road markings that are supposed to be able to allow persons with disability to easily cross the roads. There are also rails that are supposed to assist them in their movement, but a number of these things are not there. You also see our street lights. Our street lights do not show signs for persons with disability. So I think these things I don't think it's too much for these things to come into mainstream development, but I'm sure that's why we have this program, to raise the awareness and the consciousness, so that we can begin to put a number of these things more in place, and our brothers and sisters that have disability can feel more part of the society and become more functional within society.
My guest on the program today is Collins Omokaru. Collins Omokaru is the secretary of the Albinism Association of Nigeria.
So, because we do not have this melanin pigment, if we stay in the sun for a long time, we are going to come down with skin complications. For example, we may fall down to skin cancer because our skin, which do not have that factor, as we have exposed ourselves to the sun. If you stay in the sun for a long time, because you have that melanin in your skin, you are going to tan, meaning you are going to grow darker. But we cannot grow darker. Rather, our skin cells will be damaged. That is why we actually our skin color becomes red when we stay in the sun for a long time. Now, when it comes to disability, because of this impairment that we have, because of the impairment, it hinders our day-to-day activities. For example, on my way here, I had to use a hat, I had to use an umbrella, I had to apply sunscreen on my body just to walk down here because it's very sunny. But you, brother, you don't need all those things. But you see, it hinders my day activity while walking down here. So, and we know that disability is a condition. It can be physical, it can be sensory, can be mental, that impairs day-to-day activities of that individual. So, because this condition impairs my day-to-day activity, therefore, that is why it's classified under person's other disability cluster. There was a time I told my parents that I won't go to school anymore because of discrimination, because of the social ridicule I generally face when I'm walking down the street, going to school. So there's usually discrimination in society where they are not enlightened about our condition. And because also of our condition, we have what we call, we are visually impaired. When I'm visually impaired now, it means most of us cannot see distant objects. We are basically myopic. I'm myopic, therefore I cannot see distant objects. And at that time, because I was myopic, I had my chair, a separate chair in the classroom, not with others now because I can't see the board from that distance. So I had a separate chair and table close to the board. So because of this too, I was actually laughed at. You carry your checkbook for front, just kind of statements were made. So people with amazing, they face a lot of discrimination. For example, people believe that people with albinism are totally blind, that we cannot see at all. So sometimes when I'm walking down the street, then you see those bus drivers and some persons around you. They'll come and wave their hands at my face, trying to confirm if I can see. I will tell them I walked all the way from my house to this place. Does that mean I'm blind? So people believe that persons with albinism are totally blind. We are not totally blind. We just have visual impairment, meaning we cannot see far. And do you know that some persons with albinism they have good eyesight? Some they have good eyesight, and some persons with albinism they drive. Just to correct that myth that people with albinism are totally blind. It is a wrong conception.
Is Reverend Father Benedict Ongbenu.
Parents invest their time in their children with special need. If you get the right knowledge, the right information, you'll be able to bring your child out of that closet where you are keeping that child. So invest your time, invest your knowledge, and go out. There are people waiting there to give support to these children. They are not children you can lock up.
Okay, do you also think that the way religious leaders have constantly portrayed persons with disability is also largely responsible for how some people react to persons with disability?
Everyone, first, to religious leaders, it's time to come out of that ignorance. It's time to gain knowledge. We don't rule out the part of healing, divine intervention, but you see, when you are not seeing that coming, you have to now go back and begin to activate the skill of that child, beginning with your knowledge, because any man, any woman who is a religious person should understand that knowledge is power. If you don't have the proper knowledge, you will not be able to take care of these children.
So our guest on the program today will be dissecting the subject of reasonable accommodation.
Under the commission, it says for you to, every person with disability has an equal right like any other person to get access to the workplace. So in other words, the commission makes sure that there is assistive devices for persons with disability. Then you have things like the ramp for those on wheelchair to make it accessible for them. Then the doors, ensure that the doors are wide enough, you know, and then you have things for those who are virtually impaired. That's talking about the braille. And then an interpreter in the workplace where it is so easy for persons with disability to be able to work in the conducive environment. Then the commission also have their own role to play in ensuring that persons with disability, wherever they are working, it is very, very conducive. Like I did mention, the door for those who use the wheelchair, and then the ramp for those also who use the wheelchair. Then those on crutches, ensure that they also have accessibility into that building. Then what about the toilets? Also accessible. There are some hotels you go to now. It is mandatory that most of these hotels have the iron bars where persons with disability can hold and, use as convenience. But most of them don't have. Then the lifts, if they're in high buildings, there should be a lift for persons with disability to have access to be able to get to their office.
We need to create room where more voices needs to come together, in form of a collaboration and demand certain changes. It's in the area of inclusive education. There's so much gap. We're just talking about now accessibility. We're talking about the fact that the school don't have accommodation. Right now, as I'm talking to you, the vehicle we use to move the students from their hostel facility to the school to and fro is currently grounded. Since this time, it has not been used.
No, we have to be clear. Who owns the vehicle?
All right. The vehicle is owned. It was donated, actually. It was donated by the state government to the school for the visually impaired. All right. And that vehicle is currently stationed at the Navy Secretariat, where students or visually impaired students are residing. That moves them from the hostel to the school and back from the school. Right now, I think several efforts has been made. I think it's an issue of simple fueling. The government provides fueling for the vehicle to be able to enable the students to move freely from the hostel to the school. But over time, nothing has been done. Why I'm using the opportunity right now to talk about this because the Honorable Commissioner of Education needs to be aware of this situation, that these students are suffering. Thank God right now the term is almost over. We know how we put resources together just to move them to and from school. But in the area of inclusion, this ought not to be an issue at all. If the government is really concerned about inclusive education, it ought not to be an issue.
Wow, that was thought-provoking. That was food for thought. Several issues raised there, ranging from access to buildings, access to public infrastructure, access to transportation, challenges that people with visual, hearing impairment are faced with every day, even persons with albinism. All of this conversation we had on the Edo State disability law. Once more, we want to say a very big thank you to our friends from Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, JONAPID, with support for the Ford's Foundation. It was indeed a beautiful experience. However, there's so much to be worried about. The last person that spoke in that interview spoke about the situation of special education in Edo State. As I speak to you now, special education in Edo State is going through some crisis. If schools resume this next term, a lot of pupils with disability might not return to school. That's because the only special school in Edo State, situated at Uwa Primary School here in Benin City, has no hostel facility, relies on public transportation to get to school, or the bus donated by the state government, which is sometimes not fair. And so the main solution to this problem is for government to build a hostel facility so that students and pupils all over the state can have access to quality education. Refusal or reluctance to build a hostel facility for children with disability in Edo State suggests that government is denying thousands of children with disability access to education. And I want to believe that the government of Edo State, particularly the Governor Monde Okpebholo, who is particularly passionate about persons with disability, he started by creating the commission. I know he's going to finish it by ensuring that children with disability have access to primary education in Edo State. It's a wrap on the program today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for following us, both on radio and on television. We'll do this again next week. We'd like to say thank you for joining us on Hitches and Voices. Till next week, my name is Kingsley Okoje. Spot the hitch and be a voice.